So I'm on first. I thought I was on second. So if you could just, I've got a couple of slides that I'll run through. I'll run through them fairly quickly because I think just from the previous session, there's a lot of great discussion going that we can get out, and I can sort of respond to any questions that you have. So I'll try and leave some time at the end. So that's not me. Oh, so do I click through? Oh, that's me. Great. So I've been asked to come and talk about some of the best practice and some of our experience that we have with Bechtel. Now, Bechtel, as I said to you before, is when I asked the question, it's an engineering, procurement and construction company. We do project management. We build oil and gas plants. My particular experience is in infrastructure. So we've been in the UK now for over 60 years, a couple of thousand people working here in the UK. We've worked on HS1. We're working on Crossrail, Network Rail, aviation, Hinkley Point, Wilford. So, generally, we're working a lot of infrastructure here in the UK. We have a challenge. I'm here to talk about, obviously, how we've approached the gender pay gap. Again, being an engineering construction company full of engineers, as you can imagine, we're fairly male-dominated. But when I take a look at the pay gaps, if I'm looking at job versus job, grade versus grade, role versus role, we don't have a pay gap. We have a data, and that's due to a whole load of processes and procedures and governance and dashboards that we keep an eye on across all of our diversity ranges, but gender is one of them. So if you have a junior engineer, that junior engineer will be paid the same, if not there'll be a very good reason for it, as for whether it's male or female. What we do have a challenge on is the vertical segregation. So we have many more, the proportion of females at the top of our business is much less than the proportion of females at the bottom of our business, and I'll give you some stats in a moment. And so my talk really here is about what are we doing to promote women up from the entry level into our business through into the middle management, senior management, into the exec level. So yeah, new ways of working. Now, the previous panel talked about a HBR, a Harvard Business Review article that she felt was, I think it was Sam, that felt was really resonated with her. I was actually going to talk about the same thing. So if you want to make a note, it's called Why Diversity Programs Fail. It's a really good article. It's a recent one. And what it talks about basically is that you can't instruct middle managers to care about diversity. Well, you can, but it won't be very successful. You can't demand it. And then when you don't get it, penalise it. Well, you can penalise it, but you're not going to get the effect that you want, which is a much more integrated, inclusive culture that supports the input of whoever you have to be in the organisation, whether it's male, female, ethnic diversity, cultural diversity, geographic diversity. I'll take you through a little bit of our journey. So I've been with Bechtel I'm an engineer, chemical engineer. I've been with Bechtel for 30 years, and since a graduate, and it's been a sort of a passion of mine is to improve our diversity, gender diversity in particular, all the way through my career. The way I probably talk about it is that, up until about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we've always been conscious of this, but it's been more of a force of personality rather than structured programs. And when we started to actually put structured programs in place based around, and a quick plug here, the WISE 10 steps. And I know there's a workshop a little bit later on in the afternoon on these WISE 10 steps. But when I was looking for a structure and a framework to manage our diversity program, this is the best one that I've come across. So this is the one that we use. And as you say, I'm very proud that in 2015, we were the WISE Employer of the Year. We won the WISE Employer of the Year award, and this works. It works. So since we put that structured program in place, we started to see some improvement. Now, I'll use this. This, if you can't see the type here, this says 16% of Bechtel's engineers in the UK are female. That's only 16. That's double the UK average, but it's only 16. It's clearly not good enough. So we've got a huge challenge on our hands still. How do we get to this? This is a definite improvement, again, against the industry average and where we were 2 or 3 years ago, but how have we got there? We have a Women at Bechtel group. Now, there's one thing I could do differently in our diversity program. Well, there's lots of things I could do differently, but one of the things would be I'd call this group something completely different. This Women at Bechtel group has got males and females in it. It's not just women. It's anybody anybody who cares about building an inclusive culture within our organisation. We have in 2014 we had 13% increase in female graduate intake. I don't know if you in engineering, from the people in the STEM here, I think the output of engineers from universities is around for women is around about 16%. So we've got a real challenge on our hands, is to get more women into university and then get them out of university and into companies. We've had 20, in the time that we've been doing this program, we've had a reduction in female resignations from 20% to 9%. Now, a lot of that's about engagement, and a lot of that's about communication and talking about what we need to be doing in our organisation for females to feel it's more inclusive. We've got 150 people working on Crossrail. We're part of the integrated team with the customer on Crossrail. Nearly 40% of Bechtel's engineers on Crossrail are female. And there's a whole nut, and I can answer questions on why I think that is, but that's, again, is a real success factor. We won the 2015 WISE Awards, which was something I'm very proud of. And we have 2 of the top 50 women in engineering. There's a Daily Telegraph, this is won by Wes, top 50 women in engineering. 2 of those people are from Bechtel. One of them's me, which I'm also very proud of. And how do we get there? So I'll skip through to some of the challenges in a moment. Increasing the talent pool, really working hard on hiring more women into the organisation, and we split the hiring. We've looked at it fairly systematically. There's bias, and I use that word in a constructive way. There's bias in all of our processes, and we're systematically looking at taking that bias out. So there's bias in where we actually advertise for roles. There's bias in how we advertise for roles. There's bias in how we look at the CVs coming in. There's bias on how we select the CVs. There's bias on who we interview and who's successful from the interview. And what we do is we break all of that down and look at targets on how we're looking to move the women through the organisation. Internal, the WISE 10 steps, training, development, mentoring, and networking. I think I'll skip through this. I mean, we talked about that a lot in the morning session. There's lots of underlying dynamics here that I think this UK legislation is going to be really helpful in unearthing some of this underlying bias, because people are going to need to take a look, companies are going to need to take a look at, okay, the status quo is not going to work. What do I need to do to change that status quo? And that will require companies understanding what the underlying issues are. So we do the training and development, we do networking, we partnership, we have senior management sponsorship. We have women supporting women. We also have what I'd say loosely termed targets, but they are targets that we set ourselves as an organisation. I'm a firm believer in that you need to set these targets in order to challenge the status quo. Otherwise, you're just going to get the same incremental kind of evolution. You're not going to be able to make a step change until you stand back and say, okay, how am I going to make that target? What do we need to do differently to make the target? A couple of things I thought might be worth talking about in the challenges that we faced. And I have to think about it a little bit more, but the 16% that was talked about this morning, the 16% that just don't get it, or in fact actively push and rebel against what we're trying to do here as an industry. As we've got more mature within Bechtel on talking about our diversity and inclusivity, we've had, and we've communicated and we've engaged, and we've had the majority say, well, what about us? The majority have felt confident enough to say, what about us? You know, you're promoting women, you've got sponsorship of women, you've got discretionary work placements for women so they can demonstrate that their value add. What about us? And what we found, and we're going to be working on this much more as a company, with Bechtel, what we're proud, what kind of underpins our performance is a meritocracy. We all the way up from the bottom right all the way up to the top, we'd say our company was really based on as a meritocracy. Our surveys, our employee surveys, and everybody responds to those. The top issue that all of our team are concerned about are the right people promoted for the right reasons. That's irrespective of whether you're male, female, whatever kind of diversity you have. So if we can link having a true meritocracy with having a true inclusive environment which allows that true meritocracy, then I think we're going to be able to engage with the majority and hopefully get some of the elements of the majority who push against some of the activities and the where the company wants to go as far as creating that inclusive environment. Hopefully, there's a chance they start to understand. Actually, this is very good for me as well. If we have a true inclusive culture, then a true meritocracy will exist, which is good for everybody, not just females. I talked about issue 2, recruitment practices which hinder diversity. We've broken that down and kind of systematically looked at what we need to do to reduce the bias in those processes. And then ensuring women are not overlooked in promotion opportunities. So we have again, we have targets where if we got a particular promotion in line and there isn't a woman that's being considered, it will be why not, and really challenging the organisation to move the women from intake all the way up through medium management to middle management up to the exec level. And some of the lessons learned, this is my last slide, some of the lessons learned, publicise the D&I goals, so we publish them within our organisation. Leadership sponsorship, myself included, my boss, visible leadership sponsorship, talking about the hard issues. We have KPIs, key performance indicators. We do, at the middle management, some of the D&I goals are part of the way that their performance is assessed at the end of the year. We do engage with external stakeholders and not just diversity groups like WISE, but also other companies in our sector. Link. This is the one that we're going to be working on more and more and more. I think there's something that can really unleash with Bechtel and potentially with helping other people think about it a little bit differently is link inclusivity to meritocracy. And then you can see some of the rest. And the business case. I haven't talked about the business case. I thought the business case was fantastically talked about this morning, and all of that resonates completely with how we when we do a lot of unconscious bias awareness training. We make that mandatory across same as we do with our health and safety training, our ethics and compliance training. We have a unconscious bias awareness training module that we run. Say everybody does it, and then we have a particular intense unconscious bias awareness training for people who are in decision-making positions for recruitment, for promotion, so they can actively understand the part they play. And the reason I talk about that is at the same time we run the unconscious bias awareness training, we give visibility to all of our people about the business case. So why we should care as a business that we move towards a more inclusive culture. And what's included in that business case is exactly the same that was talked about this morning, which is, you get better performance. We're in an industry which we're desperate for engineers, so why cut out 50% of them when you're desperate for engineers? Our customers are expecting it from us. Our customers are actually evaluating our performance based on our approach to diversity. The business, and you can go on and on and on about the business case. But it's we've condensed it and crystallized it down in a way that we're hoping everybody in our organisation can relate to when we run our unconscious bias awareness training. So that's just 10 minutes, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions.